we've got our port set up, we've got that hidden dependency taken care of, and we should be able to start debugging our site. So the way this plugin works with your IDE is you'll set breakpoints on different lines, and that will force the script to pause and wait for you to interact with it. And alright, so the menu to bring up the Xdebug control panel is Shift F8. You can add remove breakpoints. You can also hotkey that. The hotkey is Control F8, and that toggles it. So once we have a breakpoint set, we should be able to debug this page by simply loading it in the browser. So we can close these old pages. And if you dug through the Xdebug documentation, you'll know that there's a secret URL parameter you can pass called Xdebug session start, and you give it the IDE key. For Sublime, that's sublime.xdebug. So when I run this, just to give you a little background, Xdebug is going to set a cookie, so anytime I go to the page, it's going to be attempting to debug the page as long as I have my debugger listening. So we've got our breakpoints, we've got our browser set up. We need to not set a new breakpoint, but Shift F8 and start debugging. So now I see a couple screens popped up, and Xdebug is telling us we don't have a URL specified. Basically, if we did, it would automatically load our browser. But we're doing this a little manual, and we're going to just reload the page, and we'll see now that we're listening with our debugger, the page is still spinning. It should have returned by now, but the debugger is causing it to wait for our input. And you can see now there's a little indicator that we're on line 40. If I Shift F8, you'll see my options have changed. I can check the status. It's telling me that we're breaking. And if I press just F8, not Shift F8, you'll see the menu for interacting with the debugger. So I can step over. That's going to take me to the next line of code. I can continue to step over until, let's set a new breakpoint here. So I can run, and that should stop at my next breakpoint. And now I can step into, which is going to see that mage run function. It's going to go into that, open the file that has that function declared, and start at the first line of that function. So now I can step through that. So you can see this gives you really fine control over what's going on in your system. I was debugging a CMS page, and so the CMS index controller, and so if I put a breakpoint here and then I run, I should get back to that point and it should break. So you can see you can get really fine-grained controls over debugging your site. So let's recap. Since Xdebug functions as a client-server protocol, we need to first start the debugger client in our IDE. Next, we need to tell the server that it's going to be sending debug information to our client by adding the Xdebug session start value to the query string. Once these have been done, we can add breakpoints in our code so that we can step through line by line and troubleshoot our program.